So, if you've never heard of Butterfly Ridge, maybe I should ask, have any of you ever heard of Butterfly Ridge? Bless your hearts. Bless your hearts. Thank you. So, we are located in the hillbilly section of Ohio, wedged in between the corn and West Virginia there. And to prove it, our restroom facilities at Butterfly Ridge, we have the nicest outhouses in Hocking County at our place. Okay, it's actually official. So, oh. Now, a little bit about the history of our site. Okay, first off, our site's 21 acres in size, and as I do my talk here, I appreciate Glenn's introduction to butterflies, talking about the defenses and everything, and especially there at the back end of his talk about what you can do to help butterflies out. The what you can do part is what we have done. Okay, and so we're here to tell you it's not rocket science. Okay, you keep hearing all these stories about how butterflies are populations are tanking and butterflies are going extinct and all this other stuff, and I'm here to tell you it does not have to be that way. Okay, it simply does not have to be that way. So Butterfly Ridge, our site has been in my family since 1863. Okay, and we are very blessed in that my grandfather and my dad and my uncle's dog there, they kept us pretty well informed as far as the history of the site. So we basically know 160 years of history at our particular site. Okay, so once again, it kind of helped us fight the battle to make things better by knowing what has happened in the past. So this is our trail map. We've got just under a mile of trails. We've got a variety of different habitats that trail goes through. Some of those habitats we have very intentionally created. Other habitats, for example, the wetland was already there. We just added good plants to it instead of just multiflora rose and privet. We have a couple times had to reroute the water after ODOT went through and wiped out our drainage system. So we kind of handle that maintenance type stuff. Now, you'll probably notice certain sections of my trail are in red. Okay, there's a reason for that. Those sections in red, we walk a transect at the beginning of every month from April through October. And specifically those red sections, and we document every single butterfly that we see. So I can tell you, if you let me plug my portable hard drives in, I can tell you exactly what butterflies that we saw in August of 2015 and where we saw them. Okay, we're pretty anal about the data collection part of things. This is with each year the graph gets a little bit more cumbersome, but what I want you to specifically notice is the stage safe up here? Has anybody actually walked on it? Okay. Ooh. Okay, the specific things I want you to notice, because I was afraid my laser pointer wouldn't do it justice. Our very first year of collecting the transect data is 2015. Okay, that's kind of this brick red line here. And then 2016 is the blue, green is 2017, this orange is 2018, black is 2019, yellow is 2020, last year is the bright red, this year is the magenta there. The thing I wanted to point out to make sure that you see, each year with the exception of one, and that was 2020, and if you're curious I can explain that away. Each year we keep seeing more and more and more butterflies. Okay, thank you. Because once again, like I said, it's not rocket science. okay? Each year our butterfly numbers go up. So for example, if you compare last year's numbers, 2021 to 2015, at our site we have quintupled our butterfly population. Okay, and now the rest of my talk is going to show you how we did that. And once again, it's not rocket science. So we've tinkered with stuff on a macro level. We've tinkered with habitat on a micro level. Okay, we'll hit the macro level first. Woodland openings. Believe it or not, in the year 2000, that was a field. Okay, and it had been a field for at least 100 years, maintained through agriculture and annual mowing. And then around the year 2000, Dad decided that he was tired of mowing it, and he let the trees grow up. Now, don't get me wrong, we have nothing against trees. Trees are wonderful, okay? Everybody should have trees. The problem is dense forest like that makes lousy butterfly habitat. Okay, so then what we did, we put a chainsaw in our son-in-law's hands for the first time ever, and we said, have at it, Brandon. And actually it wasn't quite that easy. We actually marked off where he was allowed to cut. We did train him before we stuck the chainsaw in his hands. He still has all of his parts. Our daughter still talks to us. So it's all good. But what we did in that old field that Dad let grow up, we created a series of woodland openings. On our map, that's labeled as the checkerboard. Because the concept is when we are finally done doing this, from an aerial view, that's exactly what it will look like, as a checkerboard with open squares and forested squares. So that picture there now looks like that. Okay, with these little 1/10 to 1/4 acre openings surrounded by woods. The openings are connected essentially on the corners. Okay, so butterflies can move from opening to opening if they want. Okay, if, you know, as a defense mechanism, they can move into the woods, they can duck down deep in the grass to get away from whatever's spooking them. So they've got that flexibility. Okay, by doing this, we created massive amounts of edge effect by doing it this way. Originally, we were just going to reopen that field, just clear cut the field. And as I start thinking about it, you know, Chris, that's not the smartest play here. There's a smarter play than just completely opening up that field again. Another woodland opening. This was actually the very first one that we created. Originally, that was going to be my parents' house back in 1994-ish. And so we helped Mom and Dad create that woodland opening, and then Mom changed her mind, decided she wanted the house out in the field instead. But when we started thinking about Butterfly Ridge and creating habitat, our minds immediately came here. The trees had grown back up, but they were still pretty skinny. We could blow through it fairly quickly with the chainsaw. And I think I've got a slide further along. There are butterfly species that we see in that particular woodland opening that we see nowhere else on the 21 acres. So once again, just that little size opening there was all it took. Among some of the butterflies that really like these little woodland openings, northern pearly-eye, little wood satyr. We also get a lot of Carolina satyr that really like to hang out in those openings. Now, our prairie. My dad, bless his heart, was obsessed with mowing. Okay, obsessed. When we lived in Sugar Grove, which is just a little south of Lancaster, about 15 miles from where Butterfly Ridge is, there was a billboard there along US 33, picture of a Cub Cadet riding mower. And the caption for the picture was mow therapy. Okay, my dad went to therapy often. Okay, So this is just out in the field. Okay, this is out in the field. That's what Dad did for fun, was mow. Okay, he was older. He couldn't do a lot of the other stuff he used to do, but he could at least still get on his riding mower. So, and that's what he did. He mowed. Now, I don't know how well you can tell. Probably not. I don't know. Maybe Glenn can tell. That right there, the unmowed section of the field, this poor field was in such bad condition. And once again, we know the history of this field. Okay, we know that for close to 100 years, this field was used for agriculture. Okay, corn, watermelon, peppers, beans, cows, horses, chickens, all that stuff happened in this field. And unfortunately, it did quite a number on the soil. So when we started thinking about doing a prairie, we actually consulted one of our local soil and water people, because we had heard that, you know, they could provide assistance, knowledge to help us make sure we do it the right way. And it's kind of cute. Poor Dave, he comes out because he wanted to do a site visit. So Dave comes out, Dave Libben with Fairfield Soil and Water. And, you know, he's trying to act very professional and everything, you know, and he's, well, normally we start with a soil test to see what condition your soil's in. And then he kind of stopped himself and he looked around and he's like, but I think in your case, we can probably skip the soil test, because based on the fact that you only have like 3 species of plants here growing, I can tell you what your soil is, okay? Because all we had growing out there was broom sedge, goldenrod, and heath aster. And that was it. And then occasional multiflora rose. And that was it. And so he knew, just by looking at the plant material that was already there, he knew that our soils were super acidic. Okay? And so what we did, we took the entire ridge top back to bare dirt and we started over. Okay, because I wasn't going to compete with broom sedge and goldenrod and multiflora rose. So we took the entire ridge top back to bare dirt. We started over. Since 2015, we have added, right now, I think we're at about 6 tons of lime that we've added to that 1.5 acre prairie. Okay, to try to get that soil pH up, because it was just so low. And it's amazing how small of a pile 6 tons is. Okay, you would be amazed. And so what we did, we tilled, and we tilled some more. Dad disked in the fall, and then in spring, once the ground thawed out, we tilled on like an every 2 to 3 week basis. We tried to get in at least 3 tillings for each little section. We did it in sections. So we did it like half an acre at a time. And then my son, we hooked up a roller on the back of our gator. He went through, rolled it all, and then we put our seed down, our own seed mix, because I don't trust commercial seed mixes, because you always get something that you didn't want. So we come up with our own seed mix. We put that down. Asa rolled it again, so we had good seed to soil contact, and that's what we have now. Okay. If I had to do it over again, I would do it actually a little bit different. We went way too heavy with the tall prairie grasses compared to like the shorter prairie grasses. So we went way too heavy with big blue stem and Indian grass. I mean, it's beautiful, but when you get like into August and September, our New England aster and our different wildflowers in there are just totally overwhelmed by the prairie grasses. The poor butterflies can't find a flower to nectar on to save their lives without digging through all the big blue stem. So that I would change. I would have switched out a lot of those tall prairie grasses for the shorter. But it's working. Okay, our butterflies are procreating. Because, you know, like Glenn said, I mean, you can have the host plants, but that doesn't mean they'll come. Well, in our case, they're coming and making more, which is exactly what we wanted and which is exactly what our data indicates. Now, like I said, we also tinkered with habitat on a micro level. Okay. Once again, that prairie was 1.5 acres in size. Those woodland openings, tenth of an acre to 1/4 of an acre in size, which isn't huge, but it's big enough to keep you busy for a while. So, to create small little pockets of habitat. When we created those woodland openings, all the brush that we created, because we cut down a lot of trees to do it, the main stems of the trees keep us warm in the wintertime. All the brush and branches we put into great big piles, great big unsightly piles, okay? But we did it because of these guys. Because the eastern comma butterfly actually overwinters in Ohio as an adult butterfly. How do they do that? Well, they hunker down in the brush piles, and that's where they spend the winter. Or they tuck in behind loose bark on a tree, and that's where they spend the winter, and it kind of helps insulate them, okay? And to give you an idea, let's see, I'm trying to remember, for the last 4 years, our first butterfly sighting of the year, each year has been eastern comma. One year, that first sighting was on February 27. Last year, I believe it was March 5th. This year was March 6th. 2020 was weird. Our first sighting wasn't until like March 28. But once again, you get 2 or 3 nice warm days at the end of February, beginning of March. These guys come out from under their brush pile, fly around, do their butterfly thing. It turns cold again. They duck back in the brush pile and wait for the next warm spell to come along. So the brush piles are very valuable tools. This, as I mentioned earlier, that is the nicest outhouse in Hocking County right there. It's a 2-seater, okay? Potty with a friend. So, when they set our tank, we had a whole lot of rain. And what happened was our tank ended up floating in the hole. Yeah, not a good thing. And so they basically had to come out and redo it. Well, when they reset the tank the second time, they set it just a smidge high. And my tank actually sits on the side of a hill. So what happens is all this water runs down the hill. Since the tank's sitting a little too high, it all accumulates around the edge of the tank. Okay? All it is just rain runoff water. It's not from the inside of the tank. It's not gross water, okay? And so we looked at it. We see this water accumulating around the tank. Great, how are we going to deal with this? Well, how we dealt with it, these particular plants here, that is false nettle. And false nettle doesn't mind having its feet a little wet, and false nettle doesn't mind living in the shade. So we planted false nettle around the outside of the outhouse, okay? Because it likes the environment. Another reason we specifically liked false nettle is it's so incredibly easy to grow from seed. Seriously, it's like cheating. It's so easy. It's one of those you just throw the seed out and boom, it pops up. But the other reason was this little guy here, the red admiral, because red admirals use false nettle as their caterpillar host plant. And so now when we're looking for caterpillars, all we got to do is go to the outhouse, look for little false nettle leaves that are sewn up like little sleeping bags. Boom, we've found our caterpillars, okay? Another problem area that we had, and I don't know if you can see, this is, by the way, this is our nature center here. Okay, nicest outhouse in Hocking County there, nature center here. You'll notice that our nature center is on stilts because that entire hillside drains right down through the parking lot and underneath the building. And of course, we didn't want to have a flooded building all the time. Okay, so our builder put the building on stilts. And then I got to looking at it and I thought, man, that just seems like an awful waste of water just to have it run underneath our building. certainly there's got to be something we can do with that. So our excavator who made our parking lot for us, I'm like, Mike, can you scoop me out just one bucket wide and maybe a foot deep, just one simple little trench between the parking lot and the building, just something that would be big enough to catch the water coming down off the parking lot. And he did that for us, and basically we made a little rain garden. So instead of all that water running down underneath the building, we just created a little rain garden by catching the water. We were able to plant, for example, that right there is cup plant, which loves having its feet wet. We've got cardinal flower in there. We've got glade mallow in there. We've got actually the false nettle, believe it or not. The false nettle has moved from the outhouse into the ditch now. Button bush, we planted button bush in there. It loves having its feet wet. So once again, we took a problem space and turned it into something positive. So when August and September roll around, once again, we've got 21 acres on our site. When August and September roll around and people show up and want to see where's the most butterflies, we just point them at the ditch, okay? Because at that time of year, that's the hot spot, is the ditch, okay? Once again, this little woodland opening that we created, that's a banded hair streak. They're actually flying right now. Funnest little butterflies to go out and observe. And the only place that we see them on the property is that one particular woodland opening where Mom and Dad were originally going to put their house. And I mentioned how fun they are. I need to put this thing down. I need two hands. So if you're ever walking at the edge of the woods and you see tiny little butterflies doing that, okay, hair streaks, automatic, some kind of a hair streak. So yeah, so in our clearing right now, you just sit in the tree house and you can watch that all day, you know. It's very entertaining. Another butterfly, and Glenn mentioned these guys, the harvester, the only carnivorous butterfly in North America. Now, the thing that originally threw us, because we see them down in this bottom section of this clearing, actually right on the trail. All the research that I had ever read stated that instead of having a caterpillar host plant, they have a caterpillar host insect. And all the research I ever read said that that host insect was woolly aphids on alder trees. Well, here's my problem. We don't have alder trees. And in fact, the nearest alder tree is about 3 miles away. So I seriously doubt a butterfly the size of my thumbnail, generation after generation after generation, is flying 3 miles to sit on my post number 7 in my clearing. But what we do have a whole lot of is sweet birch. So I'm totally convinced that they're using the woolly aphids that are on the sweet birch as their host insects. And once again, another really fun butterfly to watch. We make people sign waivers before we let them out on the trail if these guys are flying, you know. And actually sometimes people believe that when I tell them that they have to sign a waiver since these are carnivorous butterflies. But so the thing that is critical is recognizing what butterflies want. I tell people you have to kind of think like a butterfly. And you know, and some people are really, really good at that, and other people really, really struggle with that. Okay. So how we, you know, what we've done that we know butterflies want. Okay, we've got the large open space, the prairie, because we know that's what the monarchs want. That's what the eastern-tailed blues want. They want all that clover that's coming up in the prairie all by itself. Okay. The woodland edges that we know the pearly eyes want and the satyrs want. The woodland openings, you know, Zabulon skipper loves those woodland openings and edges. We provide shelter from the cold like the eastern commas want. Okay, we gave them unsightly brush piles that they can hide in. And people walk through our trail and say, why don't you do something with those brush piles? I'm like, we did do something. We made the pile, okay? And then good nectar plants and caterpillar host plants. Really want to emphasize that word good. I know people who plant the bestest, most beautiful rose garden in the county, and then they can't figure out why they don't have any butterflies. Okay, because roses just aren't built right. Butterflies don't use roses for nectaring. Okay, once again, you have to plant what the butterflies are going to want to use, and roses and daylilies and sun patiens aren't those things. Since 2015, we have planted over 6,000 plants at our place. All that stuff from seed that we have collected. Any idea if we went out and bought those plants, how much 6,000 plants would have set us back financially? More than we've got, yeah. Okay, but when you do it from seed, it goes a whole lot easier. And like I said, some of this stuff, like the false nettle, wild bergamot, once you learn the tricks, the different milkweeds, I mean, it's taking candy from a baby. It's so easy, okay? So I like to spend a little bit of time with good nectar plants. These are milkweeds. Far left is purple milkweed, which down in our neighborhood's just now starting to bloom. In the middle, common milkweed, once again just starting to bloom. On the right, butterfly weed. A lot of people don't realize it's also a milkweed. Our butterfly weed's probably 2 weeks away or so from blooming, I think. The mints, from a nectar perspective, you cannot go wrong with native mints. Just cannot go wrong. Far left is downy wood mint. It's one of the earlier blooming mints. In the middle is wild bergamot. If there is a butterfly magnet, wild bergamot is it. Okay. Especially the silver spot skippers there. I mean, it's nothing for us to walk up to a wild bergamot and see a dozen silver spot skippers all on the same plant. Okay, it's amazing. On the right, that is mountain mint. The bees really dig the mountain mint. The butterflies, you know, some of the pearl crescents and the little skippers, they'll go for it. It's not as nearly as popular as the bergamot is among the butterflies, but the bees love the mountain mint. The sunflower family. Now, the far left, a lot of people usually give me looks about that one. Okay, that is thistle. It is not Canada thistle. Okay, it's not the evil invasive thistle. That's field thistle, an Ohio native thistle. We are huge fans of thistle. I would argue late season there is no nectar source better than thistle. Okay, now we will physically engage in combat with the goldfinches to get the thistle seed. Okay, in fact, we have developed a strategy that the goldfinches haven't figured out how to get around yet. And let's see how to put it. Okay, a friend of mine, her name's Andy, and a couple weeks ago she brought me a bag of pantyhose. Okay, and Andy is key to our thistle seed collection strategy. Sometimes I go in Walmart wearing my motorcycle gear and I buy pantyhose. And people look at me funny. What we do is we buy like knee highs and we cut it into roughly like 8-inch lengths. Okay, we tie off one end. When my thistle's done blooming and the seeds are developing in there, we slide that pantyhose down over that old flower. We tie off the bottom end so that way those seeds can develop in peace. Okay, and like I said, the goldfinches haven't figured out how to get the pantyhose off yet. Okay, now I can be a fair man. Okay, we don't bag every single thistle flower. Okay, I realize the goldfinches, they deserve some too, but I'm not sure that they think the same about me, so that's why we bag it. Now, collecting the seed, yeah, it's a painful experience. Okay, that's how much we believe in Thistle. Okay, we are more than willing to endure the pain of collecting the seed because we know what it's going to result in. So we are huge Thistle fans. In fact, in a garden that we're currently developing, I've got an entire bed that is close to the size of this stage that is nothing but Thistle. Okay. In the middle, that is colic root with a snowberry clearwing moth visiting the colic root. If you know blazing star, because a lot of people don't know colic root. I think I saw it in one of your pictures maybe, Glenn. A lot of people don't know colic root. It's very close relative to blazing star, which most people do know. And then on the far right, purple coneflower with a meadow fritillary there. Let me find my clicker. So pretty much, I don't know I'll say everything in the sunflower family, but I'll say a lot of the things in the sunflower family. There's one member of the family that I'm sort of anti, okay, and that's black-eyed Susans. Because at our place, we have black-eyed Susan that's wild in our prairie. On my computer, on my portable hard drives, I can literally show you thousands, tens of thousands of pictures of butterflies nectaring on flowers. And how many of those flowers include black-eyed Susan out of tens of thousands? 3. Okay? Don't waste your money on black-eyed Susan. Moral of the story. Okay? As far as host plants go, and once again, keep in mind, butterflies are picky. I don't know how many of you have a picky eater in your life. Maybe you are the picky eater in your life. Are you so picky that you will die rather than to eat those Brussels sprouts? Okay. Our son was close. Our son was close, but sometimes you just got to pinch the nose and throw it in. But see, butterfly caterpillars, they are that picky. Okay. I have people come up to me and say, oh, we have monarch caterpillars on our dill. And I'm like, no, you don't. Okay. You've got black swallowtail caterpillars on your dill. Oh, but they're black and yellow and white striped. I'm like, well, they're not monarch caterpillars because they don't eat dill. The milkweeds, of course, are the host plant for the monarch butterflies and also a few species of moths. The legumes. The legumes are actually a really good group to serve as host plants, including this little cloudy wing here, but several of the sulfur butterflies use different legumes. Some of the dusky wing butterflies use legumes. So an excellent choice. We've got a little bush clover over here. We've got American senna in the middle. Now this is red clover, and it's probably a good time for me to address this. We are native plant enthusiasts, probably don't even cut it. Obsessed. Okay, we are native plant obsessed. And in fact, my wife was nice enough to put out this book on the speaker there, Butterfly Gardening with Native Plants, that I wrote. Okay, that's how obsessed we are with native plants. I realize red clover is not native. Okay. The butterflies really, really like it though. And it is pretty much in nearly any field in Ohio that you walk through, you will find red clover. Now, am I encouraging you to plant red clover in your fields, in your yard at home? No, I'm not. But if you've already got it, don't fight it. You know, just live with it because it has some benefits. Okay, a really poor picture of a hackberry tree there. We got red oak in the middle. We've got willow over here on the right. One of our favorite sections of our trail. We've only got like 3 or 4 hackberry trees on our property, and they're all in the same corner of the property. And that is without a doubt our favorite section of the trail to lead tours on. We intentionally stop the group under the hackberry tree, and we just stand there for 5 minutes or so. I don't know how many of you have encountered a hackberry emperor butterfly before. If you've ever had a medium-sized brown butterfly land on you, there's probably about a 90% chance that it was a hackberry emperor, okay? Because that's what they do. They're incredibly territorial and they are incredibly aggressive about it. And so I love to stop right there just to have the emperors annoy the visitors in my group and vice versa, okay? Because they will. They dive bomb you. They go whizzing past you. They'll land on you. They suck all the sweat off of you. It's awesome. It's awesome. It's a very engaging butterfly. So plant hackberry. If you've got a good site for hackberry, utilize it. Awesome plant. Of course, and the oak. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Douglas Tallamy's work. If you have his book, Bringing Nature Home, he had his grad students go through and research basically every host plant they could find for every species of Lepidoptera that they could find the data on. And what they came up with, between butterflies and moths, there's something like, 535 species of butterflies and moths that use oak as a caterpillar host plant. So if you're wanting to plant some kind of a big tree, oak is the one, okay? And then the willow, the viceroys and the red-spotted purples use willow as a caterpillar host plant. Now, some additional resources. Something that we started on Facebook. I don't know if any of you are on Facebook. I know nowadays Facebook's not the most happiest and popular place to be. However, there is some good. There is some good. We started what's called the Ohio Native Plant Seed Exchange. Because like I mentioned a little while ago, if I had had to pay cash for those 6,000 plants that we've planted, okay, we would be broker than we are, okay? So we wanted to create a forum where people could trade seeds back and forth with each other. Because, you know, I mean, if you want poke milkweed seed, I'm the guy to talk to. If you want Sullivan's milkweed, I'm not the guy to talk to. But my friend Gail Martin at Natives in Harmony, she is the girl to talk to, okay? So what this is this is kind of like a clearinghouse to try to get people introduced to growing native plants with seed rather than plants. The Facebook page has 3 rules. You're not allowed to post anything about reupholstering your couch. Number 2, all the plants that we discuss and share seeds of have to be native to Ohio. Now, do I have people in southern Michigan that are part of the group? Absolutely, because their flora is very comparable to our flora here in Ohio. And number 3, no money's allowed to change hands. Now, I mean, if you want a ton of seed from somebody, yeah, you can help with postage. But I mean, we send tons of seed to people and the postage adds up to like $3, okay? So no money's allowed to change hands because you shouldn't have to be rich to get started in native plants. We have what's called our Ridge Notes podcast. It's available on Buzzsprout, Spotify, and Stitcher, where we talk about gardening with native plants, large scale and small scale. And then I just mentioned my friend Gail Martin, who owns Natives in Harmony Nursery. If you really want to start from plants instead of seeds, Gail's the way to go. Okay, there's not a whole lot of native plant nurseries in Ohio, and I would argue Gail is one of the best. She's got stuff you're not going to find anywhere else. She knows what she's doing. She keeps her prices reasonable. She's a good Joe. New Harmony is about an hour northeast of Columbus, so kind of towards Mount Vernon, Mansfield, sort of that neighborhood. Butterfly Ridge, I mean, we are open to the public. We have a $5 admission fee. We're not affiliated with any government agencies. It's just a family gig with my wife and I. Was our kids as well until they all got tired of helping us and moved out. But yeah, it's just our family thing. We're open every day but Tuesday from 10 to 5. That's my contact information there. Now I think I got time. Yes, I wanted to introduce this real quick. This is something we do Saturday night. So for example, we did this last night in our sweatshirts and long pants and mittens. The mothing zone. So we have different mothing stations scattered throughout the property. We hang a white sheet in the middle, mercury vapor light, 270 watt mercury vapor light on one side, ultraviolet light on the other. The lights attract moths to the sheet. So to give you an idea, and I don't know how much you all know about moths. So last night on our sheet that we have in the prairie, we had 3 Luna moths at one time on the sheet. At one point we had 8 giant leopard moths on the sheet at one time, multiple rosy maple moths. I mean, and the micros. I don't know if y'all, everybody knows Luna moths and rosy maples, but then when I talk about red-banded leaf rollers, that's that's when the eyes roll back. The micro moths, the itty bitties, the little 1/8 inch long guys. Some of them are every bit as gorgeous as the Lunas and the Polyphemuses and the rosy maples. So, yeah, our current species list at our place is now over 900 species that we've documented. Several of which, I would say probably at least a dozen that we've documented, have yet to be described by science. They're only known by a numerical placeholder. So we get some cool moths. To give you an idea, and actually that top data is a little old now, but on average we see at least 89 species a night. Our best night ever, July 18, 2020, we saw 153 species. So I mean, if you're into bugs, if you're into moths, you got to come check it out. I mean, it is too awesome not to. Some of the critters we get, so this undescribed ectodermia, that's one of them that's just known by a numerical placeholder at this point. Primrose cochillid. Tell me that he's not as cute as the Luna moth there, okay? Any bug that's got magenta and gold has to qualify as cute, doesn't matter how big they are. Pink prominent, we had that 2 years ago. That is considered rare in Ohio. So we had that show up. One of my favorites, Pandora sphinx, great big sphinx. They look like kind of a green and brown checkerboard. I mean, cool looking bug. Regal moth, still a little early for the regals. We still got another month or 2 for them. And Lunas, like I said, I mean, last night we had 3 Lunas. The time before that we lit the prairie, we actually had 5 Lunas at the sheet at one time. So, so hopefully you can join us for that. That's every Saturday night, June through August, with the exception of the first Saturday of the month, because we like to sleep too sometimes. So yeah, every Saturday night except for the first Saturday.